Living a long way from society has its advantages. There's usually plenty of trees to hug, and you can save money on washing clothes because you can just get around naked. But it does have some drawbacks, like phone reception's rubbish. Can you hear me? How about now? How about now?
How about now?
And the internet is slow and unreliable. I mean, you could be at a really important part of a movie and it just stops.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me you killed him.
No. I am your
Darth Vader, who are you in relation to Luke Skywalker? His son? His brother? His mother? Curse you, slow internet! Curse you to hell!
The reason the internet is slower in remote areas is because it is usually run by satellite. And in Australia, the NBN only has 2 satellites, servicing the whole country. That's not a lot of satellites. But there's an internet provider now available in Australia called Starlink. You might have heard of its owner, a young up-and-coming go-getter called Elon Musk. He's launched thousands of satellites into low orbit, which means faster and more reliable internet. And when you hook your phone up to Wi-Fi calling, it should mean better phone reception as well. I signed up to Starlink to see if it's better than my current provider. Later, I'll compare the 2 services, which may help you determine whether Starlink is right for you. Here's my experience with Starlink so far. I signed up in August 2021, but at the time, Starlink wasn't available in northern New South Wales. They did say it wouldn't take long before they were. So I paid my refundable deposit of $139 and I waited. I got an email in January 2022 saying Starlink was now available. After I paid the setup cost of $709, a van arrived a week later delivering the hardware. It comes in a black box which weighs around 10 kilos. Inside is a router, a power box, a tripod, satellite dish, and 30 meters of cabling, which should allow me to place a dish anywhere I like. Now, unlike other service providers who install everything for you, Starlink just gives you the gear and gets you to sort it out. That may sound unprofessional, but there are 2 reasons why I think this is a good thing. First, Starlink make it very easy for you to put it all together. In fact, their instructions don't even bother with words, just pictures. Second, having to do it yourself forces you to learn about the hardware that runs your internet. I mean, how many of us have actually even touched a satellite dish before? And when you do it, you realise it's not that scary. It's kind of like when Scott Morrison held up that chunk of coal in the House of Representatives to show how coal isn't that scary. The only exception, of course, is that coal is fucking scary. As for satellite dish placement, Starlink asks for 100 degrees of unobstructed view of the sky.
Well, what the bloody heck does that mean?
Well, we know horizontal is 180 degrees. So if we take 40 off one end and 40 off the other, we get 100 degrees. Now don't stress too much if you don't think you've got quite 100 degrees of viewable sky. I've set my satellite dish here in front of this big tree and it seems to be doing just fine. And if it doesn't work in one spot, you can just try another. It's pretty forgiving. Once you've decided on the location for your satellite dish, you just need to run your cabling into the power box, the router into the power box, download the app, create a password, the satellite dish will do its thing, and before you know it, you're online. You can mount the dish directly to the roof. For that, you'll need some roof mounts, which you can get from the Starlink site. But unless you're handy on the tools, I'd get someone else to do it. Personally, I prefer to have the dish on the ground, giving me the flexibility to move it as needed. It also allows me to bring it inside if a hailstorm was on its way. Let's do a speed test to compare my current provider with Starlink. Okay, testing my current provider now.
Come on. You can crack 3 megabytes upload. Come on.
Right, so my current provider has download speeds of around 30 megabytes and upload speeds of almost 3 megabytes. Not terrible, not great.
Okay, it's now Starlink's turn. Whoa! 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 For some reason, instead of clicking the mouse, I accidentally turned the blower on. I don't even know why the blower's even in here. Still, it gave you a good idea of the speed comparisons between my old provider and Starlink. Let's have a look at the cost breakdown to see how those two compare.
Satellite internet is always going to be more expensive than the internet you get in suburbia. With that in mind, Activate Me offers a range of plans, $90 for 250 gigs and $150 for 300 gigs. Some of the data is not counted, so you can actually have more data than is showing here. But if you watch a lot of video, you might find that the amount of data is restrictive. The satellite setup is free, though you do need to buy a router, which is around $100. You can get speeds of around 25 megabytes. Starlink, on the other hand, offers only one plan for around $140, unlimited data and speeds of up to 200 megabytes. And as mentioned before, it's about $700 setup.
I want to cover the environmental components of Starlink as well, because a big part for me of living in the middle of nowhere is to do so in a sustainable and environmentally friendly way. Now, on the one hand, you've got Starlink sending thousands of satellites into space, which requires huge amounts of fuel and huge amounts of materials. And currently this requires the use of fossil fuels. Not good for the environment and not good for the air we breathe. All these satellites adds to the amount of space junk that could potentially cause collisions. On the other hand, Starlink requires no telephone lines, no telegraph poles, no copper wires, no optic cables crisscrossing around Australia. That's got to be a good thing for the environment. I do hope satellite internet proves to be a better option for the environment. If you know more about this topic, please let me know in the comments below. Overall, I am very happy with Starlink. Right now, I would recommend it for anyone who has satellite internet and who is not happy with their current service. The last thing I'll say about Starlink is that here in northern New South Wales, we've recently experienced massive floods. People lost their houses, some people lost their lives, and nobody had internet, nobody had phone reception to let people know they're okay or they needed help, except for those with Starlink. In this way, Starlink would have saved lives. Until the Australian government gets serious about climate change and keeps fossil fuels in the ground, we can expect far more frequent weather events like this. And services like Starlink are going to be even more important. If you have any questions on Starlink or my experience so far, pop them in the comments section below. And now that I've got fast internet, I can get back to that pivotal moment in Star Wars where Darth Vader reveals his true identity to Luke Skywalker.
Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father.
He told me you killed him.
No, I am your mother.